Welcome back. I've completed the material removal using the 3 different tools, and it boils down to we now have a pipe with the world's largest mortise. It's for functional purposes, that's exactly what it is. You can see, I'm hoping you can in the camera there, I'm not sure, how it's dark to a certain depth on the sidewall, and then it's lighter in color below that. Again, I can't see what you guys can see as well, but that would be where the tubular saw left off and the barbershop pole widget took over. Anyhow, I went on to then fabricate this, which is nothing more than a little, that's a wooden tube. It's briar. You can get briar from the same suppliers as the sandblasting equipment, carving gear, and so on. Vermont Freehand, Raw Crafted, those kind of guys will sell you briar blocks. And you just take a back saw and hack off a chunk and stick it in a lathe and get her done. Now there's a fair amount of unforgiving trickiness to this sort of a thing, but I don't, it's not my place to get into lathe procedures and techniques. I figure you want to learn how to make, or rather fix, pipes, and there's a abundance of videos on the internet about the use of lathes. So with that in mind, here's what it looks like. How you get here doesn't matter. It's what you want. And so I'll leave that to you guys. Just know that it is briar. And in the last video I said be sure that you don't use any kind of lubricants when you're cutting this stuff, because we're going to be gluing it. And so you don't want waxes or anything like that on there. And for the detail-minded, the angle on the end that goes into the shank matches the same angle as on the end of this, because the last thing we want is for, if this were cut off flat on the end and the bottom of the hole is the shape of this, right? Well, you're going to end up with a large, a gap all the way around the airway at the base of about here in the pipe. And that would be a place that tar and all kinds of crud would accumulate, and you couldn't get it out. There's really no practical way to reach down in there. So you want to make sure that the base of this is going to make a reasonably tight seal against that a cone meets a cone. So there we go. And this chamfer around the inside here is necessary because Dunhill, as always in this era, put a 45-degree shoulder at the base of their tenons, and you must allow for that so that when this guy can seat fully. So anyhow, then you just trim it to length and off you go. Voila. Now it's not a squeaky type fit. I deliberately made it so that you don't have to use a tool or high pressure to put it in there. Primarily because you don't want to starve the joint of glue. And if you squeeze something too much, it's called glue starvation, and you end up with a weaker joint than if you use too much, and then the glue itself gets fragile and weird. But there's an optimal gap that you want. It's a couple thousandths of an inch. So I left that, and let's see here. And then the fit then of this guy is actually quite good. There's a tiny light gap on the one side here, but that was there to begin with. And I know it's a problem with the alignment of the tenon and so on, because if I rotate it, the light gap is constantly on the same side, which means that it's not my problem. It's not something I did wrong. It's just the type of wood expansion and so forth and contraction that occurs in 100-year-old pipes that very frequently requires that they have their shank face made flush or square again. And in this case, we were going to do that anyway for the sake of appearances, in that once that, I'll use a type of epoxy that's been tinted with this black stuff so that there's no translucent line there. It's just a fine black line. And then this wood will be stained the same color as the surrounding wood. And then the whole thing is going to get leveled and squared and shined up. You know how to do it, or you've seen me do it. And in the course of doing that, what I was going to do anyway, I'll just take a tiny bit more off of one side. In fact, it'll be the top in this case than the other. And so when we put the stem in, it's light tight. So that is it. It's all I can think of to discuss. The only thing left to do, of course, is glue it and stain it, and then clean up the outside of the pipe. One more item before we go here. Treat this in the same way as if you're putting a Delrin tenon in or as a replacement, a repair tenon in a regular stem. And by that I mean, don't count on the glue. Even in this case, it's T88, designed for wood, monster strong. Overkill never hurt anybody. Over-engineering is what we want. Robustness. I want the last part of this pipe to ever fail in the future, it to be this joint. So I'm going to take those, some combination of tiny little dental tools and so forth, and make little undulations and little prick marks and so on like that on both the inner surface here and the outer surface of this drum, so that the glue will fill those the roughness, we'll call it the texture, and then you get a mechanical bond as well as a chemical bond or an adhesive bond. It becomes the three-part puzzle, or the third puzzle piece. Anyhow, that's it. I think that there's not anything more to discuss here. It's straightforward in that the concept of 5-year-old could tell you what to do. This is very much a project of fussiness. You've got to know techniques, you've got to have available tools. You have to know what to do in the right sequence as well, because you'll find you paint yourself in a corner thinking, oh crap, I just adjusted this and now that prevents me from being able to do this other thing that's important, and so on like that. So experience is the name of the game for sure. And but the concept, as all pipe repair, is falling off a log. There's just, okay, you make a bigger hole and fill it with more wood. Done. Yeah, okay. Let's see it. Anyhow, that's it. I might or might not, depending on my patience with all this video stuff, append a video of just the finished pipe, but I'm going to refinish the stummel and the stem, and basically it's going to be all new looking again. But I guess I should, just for the celebratory factor there. So that's it. Thanks as always, and hope you had a good time, and I'll see you around.